Act 2, Scene 1. Time, later the same day. At Rise, Ruth is ironing again. She has the radio going. Presently, Benitria bedroom door opens, and Ruth's mouth falls as she puts down the iron in frustration. What have we got on tonight? Emerging gradually from the doorway so that we can see her thoroughly robed in a costume as Kenny brought. You are looking at what is a well-dressed Nigerian woman wears. She parades for Ruth, her hair completely hidden by the headdress. She is crotchetedly fanning herself with a Ordeon original fan, mistaken more like butterfly than any Nigerian that ever was. Isn't it beautiful? She pontificates to the radio and, with an arrogant flourish, turns off a good loud blues that is playing. Enough of this astonishment junk. Ruth follows her with her eyes as she goes to the photograph and puts on a record and waits spasmodically for the music to come up. Then, with a shout, "Oh, come go sky!" She jumps up. The music comes up, a lovely Nigerian melody. Nature listens, enraptured, her eyes far away. Back to the past. She begins to dance. Ruth is dumbfounded. What kind of dance is that? A folk dance. Pearl barely. What kind of folks do that, honey? It's from Nigeria. It's a dance of welcome. Who are you welcoming? The men back to the village. Where'd they been? How should I know? Out hunting or something? Anyway, they are coming back now. Well, that's good. With the record. Alduni, 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 Alduni. Jampuadiana. Agusho. Algia. Alia Alduni. Walter comes in during this performance. He has obviously been drinking. He leans against the door heavily and watches his sister, at first with distaste, then his eyes look off, back to the past, as he lifts both his fists to the roof, screaming, "Yeah!" And Illiporia stretched forth her hands again, dryly looking at him. Yes, and Africa sure is claiming her own tonight. She gives them both up and starts ironing again. All in a drunken, dramatic shout. Shut up! I'm digging them drums. Them drums move me. He makes his waving way to his wife's face and leans in close to her. In my heart of hearts, he thumps his chest. I am much warrior. Without even looking up, in your heart of hearts, you are much drunkard. Coming away from her and starting to wander around the room, shouting, "Me and Jomo," intently in his sister's face. She has stopped dancing to watch him in this unknown mood. That's my man, Kenyatta, shouting and thumping his chest. Flaming spear, hot damn. He is suddenly in possession of an imaginary spear and actively spearing enemies all over the room. Okomelguskiai. To encourage Walter, though roughly caught up with this side of him. Okomelguskiai. Flaming spear. The lion is waking. Wimoa. He pulls his shirt open and leaps on the table and gestures with his spear. Owimoi. On the table, very far gone, his eyes pure glass sheets. He sees what we cannot, but he is a leader of his people, a great chief, a descent of Chaka, and that the hour to march has come. Listen, my black brothers. Okigomiskia. Do you hear the waters rushing against the shores of the coastlines? Okomioskia. You hear the screeching of the crocs in younger hills beyond where the chiefs meet in council for the coming of the mighty war, Okomoriskia. And now the lightning shifts subtly to suggest the worlds of Walter's imagination, and the mood shifts from pure comedy. It is inner Walter speaking. The south side Kafir he assumed an unexpected majesty. You hear the beating of the wings of the birds flying low over the mountains,
and the low places of our land. Okobogoskia. Do you hear the singing of the women, singing the war songs of our fathers to the babies in the great houses, singing the sweet war songs? The doorbell rings. Oh, do you hear, my black brothers? Completely gone. We hear you, Flaming Spear. Ruth shuts off the photograph and opens the door. George Morskinsian enters, telling us to prepare for the greatest of the time. Lights back to normal. He turns and sees George. Black brother. He extends his hand for a fraternal clasp. Black brother, ho. Having had enough, and embarrassed for the family, Benitria, you got company. What's the matter with you? Walter the younger, get down off that table and stop acting like a fool. Comes down off the table suddenly and makes a quick exit to the bathroom. He's had a little to drink. I don't know what her excuse is. To Benitria, look, honey, we're going to the theater. We're not going to be in it, so go change. Huh? Benitria looks at him and slowly, charismatically lifts her hands and pulls off her headdress. Her hair is close-cropped and unstraightened. George freezes mid-sentence and Ruth's eyes are all but fan out on her head. What in the name of, touching Benitria's hair. Girl, you done lost your natural mind. Look at your head. What have you done to your head? I mean, your hair. Nothing, except cut it off. Now that's the truth. It what ain't been done to it. You expect the boy to go out with you and your hair all nappy like that? Looking at George. That's up to George, if he's ashamed of his heritage. Oh, don't be so proud of yourself, Benny, just because you look eccentric. How can somebody that natural be eccentric? That's what being eccentric means, being natural. Get dressed. I don't like that, George. Why must you and your brother make an argument out of everything people say? Because I hate. Will somebody please tell me what Iasmia, who whatever means? It's just a college girl's way of calling people Uncle Toms, but that isn't what it means at all. Well, what does it mean? Cutting George off and staring at him as she replied to Ruth. It means someone who is willing to give up his own culture and submerge himself completely in the dominant, and in this case, oppressive culture. Oh dear, 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 here we go. A lecture on the African past, on our great West African heritage. In 1 second, we will hear all about the great Aztec empires and great Songhai civilians and the great sculpture of Benin and some poverty in the Baru and the whole monarch will and the whole world heritage. Nastily, let's face it, baby, your heritage is nothing but a bunch of ragged ass spirituals and some grass nuts. Grass huts? Ruth crosses to her and forcibly pushes her towards the bedroom. See there, you are standing there in your splendid ignorance, talking about people who were the first to smelt iron in the face of the earth. Ruth is pushing her through the door. The Azteci were performing surgical operations when the English. Ruth pulls to the door too with Benitria on the other side and smiles graciously at George. Benitria opens the door and shouts at the end of the sentence defiantly at George. We're still tattooing them sleeves with blue dragons. She goes back inside. Have a seat, George. They both sit. Ruth folds her hands rather firmly on her lap, determined to disstate the civilization of the family. Warm, ain't it? I mean for September. Pause. Just like they always say about Chicago weather. If it's too hot or too cold for you, just wait a minute and it'll change. She smiles happily at the sheik of clenches. Everybody says it's got to do with them bombs and things they kept setting off. Pause. Would you like to a nice cold beer? No, thank you. I can't care for beer. He looks at his watch. I hope she hurries up. What time is the show? It's at 8:30, certain. That's just Chicago, though. In New York Standard certain time is 8:40. He is rather proud of his knowledge. Properly accepting it, you get to New York a lot? Offhand, few times a year. Oh, that's nice. I've never been to New York. Walter enters. We feel he has relieved himself, but the edge of unreality is still with him. New York ain't got nothing Chicago ain't. Just a bunch of hustling people all squeezed up together being Eastern. He turns his face into a screw of displeasure. Oh, you've been? Plenty of times. Shocked at the lie. Walter Lee Younger. Staring her down. Plenty. What we got to drink in this house? Why don't you offer this man a refreshment? To George. They don't know how to entertain people in this house, man. Thank you. I really don't care for anything. Feeling his head slowly coming. Where's Mama? She ain't come back yet. Looking malicious over his head to toe, scrunching his carefully casual tweed shorts jackets over V-neck sweater over soft eyelet shirt and tie and soft slacks, finished off with the white buckskin shoes. Why all you college boys wear them raggly looking white shoes? Walter Lee. George ignores the remark. Well, they look crazy as hell. White shoes, cold as it is. Crushed. You have to excuse him. No, I don't. Excuse me for what? What are you always excusing me for? I'll excuse myself when I need to be excused. A pause. They look as funny as them black knee socks Venetia wears out of here all the time. It's the college style, Walter. Style hell. She looks like she got a burnt leg or something. Oh, Walter. An irritable mimic. Oh, Walter. Or Walter. How's your old man making out? I understand you all going to buy the big hotel on the drive. He finds a beer in the refrigerator, wanders over to Murchison, slipping and winding his lips with the back of his hand, and straddling a chair backwards to talk to the other man. Screwed move. Your old man, is he all right, man? Tapping his head and half winking for emphasis. I mean, he knows how to operate. I mean, he thinks big, you know what I mean? I mean, for a home, you know? But I think he's kind of running out of ideas now. I'd like to talk to him. Listen, man, I got some plans that could turn this city upside down. I mean, think like he does. Big. Invest big. Gamble big. Hell, lose big if you have to. You know what I mean? It's hard to find a man on the whole South Side who understands my kind of thinking. You dig? He scrunches much sun again, drinks his beer, squeezes his eyes, and leans in close, confidently, man to man. Me and you ought to sit down and talk sometimes, man. Man, I got me some ideas. With Bourne. Yeah, sometimes we'll have to do that, Walter. Understanding the indifference unoffended. Yeah, well, when you got the time, man, I know you a busy little boy. Walter, please. Bitterly hurt. I know ain't nothing in this world as busy as you colored college boys with your fantasy pins and white shoes, covering her face with humiliation. Oh, Walter Lee, I see you all the time with the books tucked under your arms going to your British A magic classes. And for what? What the hell you learn over there for, filling up your heads, counting off on his fingers with the society of the physiology and the teachings you how to be a man, how to take over and run the world. They teaching you how to run a rubber plantation or a steel mill. Nah, just to talk proper and read books and wear them froggy looking white shoes. Looking at him with distaste, a little above it all. You're all rocked up with bitterness, man. Intently, almost quietly, between the teeth, glowering at the boy. And you, ain't you bitter, man? Aren't you just about had it yet? Don't you see no stars gleaming that you can't reach out there and grab? You happy? You content son of a bitch? You happy? You just made it bitter, man. I'm a volcano, bitter. Here I am, a giant surrounded by ants. Ants who can't even understand what it is the giant's talking about, passionately and suddenly. Oh, Walter, ain't you with nobody? Violently. No, 'cause I ain't nobody with me, not even my own mother. Walter, that's a terrible thing to say. Benicia enters, dressed for the evening in a cocktail dress and earrings, hair natural. Well, hey, crosses to Benicia, thoughtful with emphasis. Since this is a reversal, you look great. Seeing his sister's hair for the first time. What's the matter with your head? Tired of jokes now. I'd cut it off, brother. Coming close to inspect it and walking around her. Well, I'll be damned. So this is what they mean by the African bush. Ha ha. Let's go, George. Looking at her. You know something? I like it. It's sharp. I mean, it really is. Helps her into her wrap. Yes, I think so too. She goes to the mirror and starts to clench at her hair. Oh no, you leave your alone, baby. You might turn it out to have a pinned head or something. See you all later. Have a nice time. Thanks. Good night. Half out the door, he reopens it to Walter. Good night. Prometheus. Demetria and George exit to Ruth. Who is Prometheus? I don't know. Don't worry about it. Pointing after George. See there? They get to a point where they can't insult you man to man. They got to go talk about something ain't nobody never heard of. How do you know it was an insult to humor him? Maybe Prometheus is a nice man. Prometheus, I bet there ain't even no such thing. I bet this simple-minded clown. Walter. She stops what she's doing and looks at him, yelling, Don't start. Start what? You're nagging. Where was I? Who was I with? How much money did I spend? Plaintively, Walterly, why don't we just try to talk about it? Not listening. I've been out talking with people who understand me, people who care about things I got to my mind. I guess that means people like Willie Harris. Yes, people like Will Harris. With a certain flash of impatience, why don't you all just hurry up and go into the banking business and stop talking about it? Why? You want to know why? Because we all tied up in a race of people that don't know how to do nothing but mourn, pray, and have babies. The line is too bitter even for him, and he looks at her and sits down. Oh, Walter, honey, why can't you stop fighting me? Without thinking. Who's fighting you? Who even cares about you? And begins the retardation of his mood. Well, she wastes a long time, and then with resignation starts to put away her things. I guess I might as well go on to bed. More or less, to herself. I don't know where we lost it, but we have. Then to him. I I'm sorry about this new baby, Walter. I guess maybe I better go on and do what I started. I guess I just didn't realize how bad things was with us. I guess I just didn't realize. She starts out to the bedroom and stops. You want some hot milk? Hot milk. Yes, hot milk. Why hot milk? 'Cause after all that liquor you come home with, you ought to have something hot in your stomach. I don't want no milk. You want some coffee then? No, I don't want no coffee. I don't want nothing hot to drink. Why you always trying to give me something to eat? Standing and looking at him helplessly. What else can I give you, Walter Lee Younger? She stands and looks at him and presently turns to go out again. He lifts his head and watches her go away from him in a new mood which began to emerge from he asking her, Who cares about you? It's been rough, ain't it, baby? Hears and stops, but does not return around, and he continues her back.
I guess between two people, there ain't nothing as much as folks generally thinks this is. I mean, between me and you, turns to face him. I know when it gets to the place where we scared to talk softness to each other. He waits, thinking hard himself. Why do you think it got to be like that? He is thoughtful, almost as a child would be. Ruth, what is it gets into people's ought to be close? I don't know, honey. I think about it a lot. On account of you and me, you mean the way things are with us, the way something done come down between us. There ain't so much between us, Walter. Not when you come home to me and try to talk to me, try to be with me, a little even. Totally honesty. Sometimes, sometimes I don't even know how to try. Walter. Yes, coming to him gently and with misgiving, but coming to him. Honey, life don't have to be like this. I mean, sometimes people can do things so that things are better. You remember how we used to talk when Travis was born about the way we were going to live, the kind of house. She's stroking his head. Well, it's all starting to slip away from us. He turns her to him, and they look at each other and kiss, tenderly and hungrily. The door opens and Mamma enters. Walter breaks away and jumps up a beat. Mamma, where have you been? My, them steps is longer than they used to be. Whew. She sits down and ignores him. How are you feeling this evening, Ruth? Ruth shrugs, disturbed at having been interrupted and watching her husband knowingly. Mamma, where have you been all day? Still ignoring him and leaning on the table and changing to more comfortable shoes. Where's Travis? I let him go out earlier and he ain't come back yet. Boy, is he going to get it. Mama, as if she has heard him for the first time. Yes, son. Where did you go this afternoon? I went downtown to tend to some business and I had to tend to. What kind of business? You know better than to question me like a child, brother. Raising and bending over to the table. Where were you, Mama? Bringing his fist down and shouting, Mama, you didn't go do something with that insurance money, something crazy? The front door opens slowly, interrupting him, and Travis peeks his head in, less than hopefully, to his mother. Mama, nothing. You're gonna get it, boy. Get on in that bedroom and get yourself ready. But why don't you all never let the child explain himself? Keep out of it now, Nina. Mamma climbs her lips together and Ruth advised towards her son. 1,000 times I've told you not to go off like that. Holding out her arms to her grandson. Well, at least let me tell him something. I want him to be the first one to hear. Come here, Travis. The boy obeys gladly. Travis. She takes him by the shoulder and looks onto his face. You know that money we got in the mail this morning? Yes'm. Well, what do you think your grandma gone and done with that money? I don't know, Grandma. Putting her finger on his nose for emphasis, she went out and she bought you a house. The explosion comes from Walter at the end of the revelation, and he jumps up and turns away from all of them in a flurry. Mama continues to Travis, You glad about the house? It's going to be yours when you get to be a man. Yeah, I always wanted to live in a house. All right, give me some sugar then. Travis puts his arms around her neck as she watches his grandson over the boy's shoulder, then to Travis after the embrace. Now, when you say your prayers tonight, you thank God and your grandfather, 'cause it was him who gave you the house in his way. Taking the boy from Mamma and pushing him towards the bedroom. Now you get out of here and get ready for your beating. Ah, Mamma, get on in there, closing the door behind him and turning to her mother-in-law. So you went and did it, quietly looking at her son with pain. Yes, I did. Raising both arms classically, praise God. Look at Walter at a moment, who says nothing. She crosses rapidly to her husband. Please, honey, let me be glad. You be glad too. She has laid her hands on his shoulders, and he shakes himself free of her roughly without turning to face her. Oh, Walter, a home. She comes back to Mama. Well, where is it? How big is it? How much is it going to cost? Well, when we moving? Smiling at her. First of the month. Throwing back her head with Goldman's. Praise God. Tensively, still looking at her son's back turned against her and Ruth. It's a nice house too. She could not help speaking directly to him. An imploring quality in her voice, her manner, makes her almost like a girl now. 3 bedrooms, nice big one for you, Ruth. Me and Demetrius still have to share our room, but Travis have his own, and with difficulty. I figure if the new baby is a boy, we could get one of them double dunker outfits, and that's a yard with a little patch of dirt where I could maybe get to grow me some few flowers, and a nice big basement. Walter, honey, be glad. Still to his back, fingering things on the table. Course, I don't want to make it sound fancier than it is. It's just a plain little old house, but it's made good with solid, and it will be ours. Walter, it makes a difference in a man where he can walk on floors that belong to him. Where is it? Frightened at this telling. Well, it's out there in Claiborne Park. Ruth radiates, fades abruptly, and Walter finally turns slowly to face his mother with incredibly and hoarsely. Where? Matter-of-factly. 406 Claiborne Street, Claiborne Park. Claiborne Park? Mama, there ain't no colored people living in Claiborne Park. Almost idiotically. Well, I guess there's going to be some now. Bitterly. So that's the peace and comfort you went out and bought for us today? Raising her eyes to meet his finally. Son, I just tried to find a nicer place for the least amount of money for my family. Trying to recover from the shock. Course I ain't one never been afraid of no crackers, mind you bet. Well, wasn't there no other houses nowhere? Them houses they put up for colored in them areas way out of seem to cost twice as much as other houses. I did the best I could. Struck senseless with the news, in its vigorous degrees of goodness and trouble, she sits a moment and fists properly her chin in thought, and then she starts to rise, bringing her fist down with vigor, the radiance spreading through cheek to cheek again. Well, all I could say is, if this is my time to live, my time to say goodbye, and she builds with momentum as she starts to circle the room with an extravagant, almost tearful happiness release. To these goddamn cracker walls she ports the walls, and these marking roaches she wipes at an imperial army of marching roaches, and this cramped little closet which ain't now or never was no kitchen, and I say it loud and good, hallelujah, and goodbye, misery. I don't ever want to see your ugly face again. She laughs joyously, having practically destroyed the apartment, and flings her arms up and lets them come down happily, slowly, reflectively over her abdomen, aware for the first time perhaps that the life therein pulses with happiness and not despair. Lena, moved, watching her helplessly. Yes, honey, looking off. Is there is there a whole lot of sunlight? Understanding. Yes, child, there's a whole lot of sunlight. Long pause. Collecting herself and going to the door of the room Travis is in. Well, I guess I'd better see 'bout Travis, to Mama. Lord, I sure don't feel like whipping nobody today. She exits. The mother and son are left alone now, and the mother waits a long time, considering deeply before she speaks. Son, you understand what I done, don't you? Walter is silent and stone. I I just see my family falling apart today, just falling to pieces in front of my eyes. We couldn't have gone on like we was going backwards instead of forwards, talking about killing babies and wishing each other was dead. When it gets like that in life, you just got to do something different. Push on out and do something bigger. She waits. I wish you say something, son. I wish you say how deep inside you think I done the right thing. Crossing slowly to his bedroom door and finally turning there and speaking measuredly. What you need me to say you done right for? You're the head of this family. You run our lives like you want to. It was your money and you did what you wanted with it. So what you need me to say it was all right for, bitterly to hurt her as deeply as he knows is possible. So you conjured up a dream of mine, you who always talking about your children's dreams. Walter Lee. He just closes the door behind him. Mama sits alone, thinking heavily. Curtain.